Whether I enjoy killing I'm going to provide a response to a very interesting landscape as laid out for us by Dr Wafer. So much of the headspace that I'm in, working in today, is has been in some ways brought to the fore here today. I wanted to start off with just a small piece taken from part of Threlkeld's writing, and it's on an occasion when he's talking about his spelling books. He says, let me see now. Young McGill was asked another young boy named Blue Bill. He who made all things is God. And he observed that old McGill knew, for he had seen Jehovah. This is young McGill talking. Inquiring further into this extraordinary assertion from a black, he said he would bring McGill to inform me all about the circumstances. These are the words of Threlkeld. McGill came and related to me as follows. The night before last, when coming hither, I slept on the other side of the lake. I dreamed about that I and my party of blacks were up in the heavens, that we stood on a cloud, and I looked around about in the heavens. I said to the men that were there with me, there he is. There is he who is called Jehovah. Here he comes flying like fire with great shining. This is about he about whom the whites speak. He appeared to me like a man with clothing like fire, red like flame. His arms were stretched out like wings of a bird in the act of flying. He did not speak to us, but only looked earnestly. Sorry, did I get that right? Only looked earnestly at us as he was flying past. I said to the blacks with me, let us go down, lest he take us away. We descended on the top of a very high mountain like this pestle, showing me the one that was in my study. We came to the bottom, and just as we reached the ground level, I awoke. We often dream about this mountain. Many blacks fancy themselves on the top of this mountain. And your images about the world certainly didn't faze me when I thought. So I put this up just in case I was going to read it, and then I thought, well, Jim's laying it out here for us. You're providing us with a range of headspaces that I think are very important to the process of reclaiming Aboriginal, not just language, but the depth and the understandings within language. For when I listen to you talk about the notion of Marae and was it Marae and Mingi. I have a different thinking about the Mingi, but this is the notion of the debate, the conversation that needs to happen. The root of the word Minduan in my language is the truth, and Gi or Gizra is the act of stirring, creating, making, but it's a full movement. So Mingi is could be making the truth. Stirring up the truth. I'm not suggesting that I have the answer, but I'm suggesting that what you've spoken here today is resonating. I also think about the concept of the idea of Min lights. Those two lights that represent, in many Aboriginal communities, the mother and the child. Hence, in the Arnhem Land, the Yothu Yindi framework is the mother and child. In my storyline, where I come from, we also have this concept of this phenomena of lights. But when I was a child, if we ventured around the community, particularly in Kempsey, there were some old people who had sacred lights, dangerous lights, likes to be fearful of, and these were called the blue lights. More often than not, and we knew who they were. Everybody spoke about them. Everybody said, "He's the keeper of those lights." And so, those were people that you just do not mess with. So when I'm reading your stuff and I'm listening to your stuff, I'm wondering, okay, so what's happened to Aboriginal languages? Is it all lost? Is it just a struggle, and do we put together bits and pieces and go, that'll be, and we'll take one of those and three of those and four of those and we've got a shopping basket full of words? Or is there a way that we can begin to start to have some intellectual connection to the idea of language? And I think today that you've clearly suggested and shown me that we can. The idea of layering the story about poor Charlie on the scaffolding, a sad indictment. And yet when I read the history books, the entire history of this country is scattered with murder and death and a whole range of other things that certainly fit into the notion of hell on earth. But somewhere through the story, I get this sense of this. What is this thing that's emanating, and from where is it emanating from? For me, I go to the Gumbangi word "jagi," and "jagi" is the notion of breath. It's about blowing upon food. So you bless the food by blowing upon. You bless the child by blowing upon the child. Now, when I was a child, or when I was younger, that word was not a word that needed to be spoken elsewhere. And so I always thought that was a word that was privileged. And yet, the notion of dictionaries are what they are, and so the Gumbangi Gumbangi group now clearly have the word "jagi" in their dictionary. So, as far as I'm concerned, all bets are off. It's an open place. But where did the idea come from? Well, I certainly don't have the history on that, but I'm not adverse to believing that there has been a relationship built in somewhere in the past, and that this concept of providing a blessing over food or a blessing over people is something that could have been borrowed, or in fact it could have been there before. Does it matter? Perhaps not. I really love the image to start with. What's that about? I thought, well, okay, he's going to take us on a story here, and I really like that because what it clearly said was, here is somebody who's doing some story, and he's going to tell a yarn for it. And the final one I would like to bring you to is the idea of the story that we have about the concept of birds. Traditionally, my people spoke about the idea of birds. People went into those places. Each of those participants might be given the wings of a bird. You get this bird, you get that bird, you get this bird. And so, is there something in that? Perhaps. But I will recount the one little story about what we call what did he call it? In some place they call it the jury bird. We don't actually have a name for him. But he is equivalent to the paralot, which is a little bird that lives in the bank. They all flew into the air. All the birds decided who would become the last to land would become the king of the birds. They all flew around. The little bird, little paralot, he had such ambition, such dream that he just flew as high as he could, and he set off towards the sun. He reached a height where he just fell unconscious and fell back towards the earth and landed on the back of an eagle. The eagle flew around for half a day or whatever it took, and he decided that he was he would claim his prize. He set off towards the earth with a jolt, landed, and of course when you look back, here comes the little parrot who claimed his place and said, "I will be the king of the birds." The essence of the story for me, and this is slightly different, but it reminds me of another story, and that is that at that point they decide they kill him, and then they put him in a hole in the wall, and they left a guard over him. Eventually eventually they left the owl, who was called Durkin, and the little Durkin was looking after the Parlot. Durkin went to sleep, they got out, so they banned both of those two, so those two were cast into the wilderness. And so the whole story of why stories come out eventually makes sense to me. Do I have a word for the notion of spirit and soul? No, but I think I understand where those words sit in my world. If I could, just wanted to say thank you for a great day. I think you've set my mind like the cogs on those wheels on the way. I just want to leave you with one last little piece of words from Threlkeld, something he wrote in 1857. The Lord will provide, I am their inheritance, be not faithless but believing. God is my sun, he is my shade, to guard my head by night or moon. Hast thou not given thy word, to save my soul from death? I can trust my Lord to keep my mortal breath. I'll go and come, not fear to die, till from on high thou call me home.